Everybody music. It's an ancient genre and the latest craze. Everybody music. It's a human revolution, not a passing phase. 'Cause everybody is a musical body designed from the ground up to connect. And everyone can be a music gardener. All you got to do is sow seeds of music wherever you go.
Don't forget to water them, huh?
Everybody music. It's us. Okay, so here's another interview from the archives. This is an interview I did with my high school teacher, Wally Glickman. And I'm calling this, It's All Relative. And because Wally was the one who first introduced me in high school to the Einstein's theory of relativity. And, and since then I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. It's like death. It's that impossible to really understand, and I just keep thinking about it, I think this might come out in here, as we talk about truth, music, and how they might relate to Einstein's theory of relativity. Okay, enjoy. All right, so Wally, I want to introduce you to the listening audience, okay? Wally Glickman was my favorite teacher at Skunk Hollow High School, and Wally was teaching relativity, and so that was like, I didn't really understand it, and I still don't, but I've been trying to apply it to music and social interactions, the way we talk to each other. And I'm wondering is if you would concur with some of my thinking on this. So maybe could I tell you a little bit about my thinking?
Sure.
That relativity, as I see it, is about that there is nothing that's fixed. Is that one part of it?
Go on, because that's a good beginning.
Okay.
I don't want to get myself in a corner.
Like nothing is like fixed in a location. Like there's no location that it's all about relationships. So that like the sun is not fixed. The sun is in relationship to the earth. Mm-hmm. And, you could say that the earth is going around the sun, but you could also say the sun is going around the earth. And it actually, they're both equally true. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a point of view argument. From our position of the earth, the sun moves. If you're on the sun, the earth moves. If you see an elevator door, if you're inside an elevator and the door opens or something like that, and you see the floor moving up or down, the floor is moving up and down to you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, it's teaching me to about that perspective. And so like when I talk to somebody and I tell them my point of view, it's just my point of view from where I am. It's like what I see from my vantage point, and their point of view is what they see. Mm-hmm. And so it's about our relationship to each other. Mm-hmm. That really is the importance of the conversation. Like that's really what is important in the conversation. Just like I use it in music too. Like rather than teaching about like focusing on the notes, but it's about the relationships
Yeah.
of the notes. And so this note is this far away from that note, and so because of that particular distance, there's a certain
it's like
quality.
when you transpose, you're just actually doing that with the very, very relativistic kind of a thing. You by just changing the key, the relationships are identical.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so, you know, so I know that that's extremely simplistic take on relativity, but would you say that that's a piece of it?
You know, I wouldn't want to say it's the whole thing, but I think it's a good insight. It's yeah. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm kind of trying to be a little defensive here, you know, like just, you know, am I saying something I'm going to regret or something? But I think so far, I think the feel that you have is the feel I have, you know, of it. Can I just mention this to you? Do you know that John Coltrane was interested in relativity?
I think I did. I think that sounds familiar to me.
Okay.
And I'm not surprised because I've seen his chart. Like
Yes,
he created
the circle.
the circle, which
Yeah.
is really interesting. I haven't really, you know, fully, you know, absorbed it. But
Yeah, I looked at it just the other way, and I couldn't really get into it. I didn't know where to start, you know.
Yeah.
But I know it's the relativeness of starting. It's you know, the
Yeah.
transposition of keys in the circle. But
Right. So, do you feel like you could explain a little bit about relativity?
yeah, I'm sure I could. Well, when you say that the essence of the things that we see is relative, as you said at the beginning, that it's from your point of view, you know. But Einstein opens that up to such a general, important principle. Well, let me just be a little bit formal now. He
Okay.
bases it on two postulates. His starting points are two very strong assumptions that he can't prove, but he's assuming.
Okay.
One of them is that the speed of light is constant to everybody, no matter how fast you're moving or how fast the light source is moving.
Okay. Wait. Can I jump in here
Sure,
because
absolutely, yeah.
so the speed of light. So when he says it's 186,000 miles per second,
Yeah.
that is really just kind of like almost random because it's a postulate. Like he's saying
Yeah.
that he's basing all this other things on, and he has no way to know, really.
No, he does. He does have way to know because it's been measured. It's been
Okay.
measured. I mean, you know, very ingenious kind of experiments, but so many different kinds of ways. But they all agree, and they pinpoint at 186,000, blah, 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 down to the billionth, you know, and all these measurements agree. So the kicker of that assumption, though, is, well, how can that be? How can the speed of light be the same no matter who you are? It's the same as to us as on a rocket ship moving extremely fast, because that's not true. If you're in a boat alongside of a swimmer, right, and it's a fog, say, and the swimmer's got a light, you see that light moving next to the boat. It's not moving because you and he are moving at the same speed through the water, right? So the guy in the boat could honestly say, no, the speed of that person is zero to me on the boat.
Right.
But if someone is in the water still and they see that swimmer moving by, they can say, oh, he's moving 3 miles an hour or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so when you say that light defies all that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what platform you're standing on. You measure light going by you, it'll be 186,000 miles a second. And it doesn't matter what speed your platform is. Now think about that for a while, because that's ridiculous.
Right. Okay.
That means light is an exception to everything else that we see move.
Okay. And somehow he figured that out based on his thought experiment of writing on a photon.
Well, you know, he was influenced by a lot of things. In part, the symbol for light, the speed of light, is c, small c. right? MC equals MC squared. Small c is the speed of light. So we could talk about that instead of 186,250, c. So that c appears in physics equations, very, very important physics equations. And so he, I think, was thought along the lines, there's got to be more to this than just an arbitrary number, in other words, it was a fixed number in our units, miles, hours,
Right.
seconds,
Yeah.
million meters a second, whatever you want to measure it, it's always the same for everybody who measures it.
Right. Okay.
And
so
then he said, yeah, go ahead. You
so
can stop me anytime.
Like, let's say, could you imagine that the speed of light, was only, what would happen if the speed of light was only 10 miles an hour?
Okay.
So, like, you're in a boat, and the boat is going in relation to the water 10 miles an hour. And,
Good.
And it shines a light in front of it. The light's not going to go anywhere. Right?
Right. This is a very thought experiment he had when he was 16. He actually thought about that, what if you actually get on a beam of light and you look under you, what's going on there, because you're moving at the same speed of light.
Okay, so we're moving at the speed of light, and it doesn't matter really. It's because these are light defines certain things. So let's make it like that you're on a train. I think it's a little easier for me to visualize.
Yeah, he did that too. He did the train thing too.
So like you're on a train that's going 10 miles an hour, and light goes at 10 miles an hour. So the light is shining in front of you, and it's not going anywhere. It doesn't go in anywhere. Oh, it does, because it goes 10 miles an hour faster than you are.
Yes.
And
That's right. And that would be a weird world.
Okay, so you're standing on the side, and you see this train going by, and for you, the train and the light are going the same speed.
Yes.
Because light is going 10 miles an hour in relation to you, and so is the train. So they're going the same speed. So now, the light from the train, so that you can see the train, because the only way you can see the train is if there's light coming off of it, right?
Right.
Because it's getting reflected or whatever. So it's coming off the train, and it's going 10 miles an hour towards you. And so,
that's right.
As the train is approaching you, it's coming along, and the light is coming at you at 10 miles an hour, and so is the train.
Right.
So you're not going to see the train, I guess. So and then after it leaves you, the train is still going 10 miles an hour, and so is the light leaving it. So you can't see the train. Is that correct?
I didn't follow that and at the end of the thing. Let's do the train coming forward. I'm better at that.
Okay.
Can I have a stationary object instead of a train? Just let's start with this.
Create your own.
I'm looking at a clock. Okay, clock. I'm looking at a clock, and the hands say 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now, I look at it, it takes a zillionth of a second for the light to bounce off the clock into my retina, right? And in my retina, upside down, is a picture of a clock reading 9.
Right.
Okay. Now I start to move away from the clock at really high speed until, let's say, I move 10 miles an hour, if you want, the speed of light's 10 miles an hour, right? Then the light's never going to make it to my eye.
Yeah.
If light is ordinary, right? In other words, if I can move at the speed of light away from that thing, the light will never reach my eye.
Right.
But let's go halfway back. Suppose I'm only going half the speed of light.
Yeah.
Right? Away from the clock. Now, light's going to take longer to get to my eye, right? Because I'm moving away from it.
Right.
By the time it gets into my eye, let's say it reads 9:01, but it's really 9:02. Really?
Well, actually, when you're looking at it, it's 9:01. Let's say it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking at it.
9 o'clock. I'm
Yeah,
looking at
and
it,
so
right.
by the
Now,
time the light gets
9
to you,
o'clock,
it still looks
it's
like
later.
Yeah, it's later, but it still says 9 o'clock for
Later.
you.
Right. And if you're moving away at the speed of light, right, in the normal world, not the Einsteinian world, if you're moving away at the speed of light, the light beam will never reach your eye. Or the change will never reach your eye. So what's stuck in your eye is 9 o'clock. In other words, for you, time stops.
Right.
Now, the clock is just one example. I mean, it could be somebody drinking water, it could be anything. But the image that's on your retina always stays what it was before you started moving away so fast because the light can't catch you.
Right. Okay.
So there's some other, kind of real problems with this situation too. But what really pushed him to make changes was he said, okay, if that's the case, and the second postulate I didn't get to, but
So
it's
this is
easier
stuff
to
that
understand,
he was thinking about this when he was 16.
Yes, he was imagining moving away from a beam of light and moving towards a beam of light and riding on a beam of light. And but he knew that, according to the theory, light was oscillating electric and magnetic fields. So he was trying to picture what that means, and it doesn't compute because it can't. Electromagnetic fields need to propagate, and they need to move,
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't make each other. That's from the field of electromagnetism, which he knew. So he's drawing on all these different fields. But let me just do the second postulate. That is, the laws of physics are the same in any system that's moving at relative speeds to each other, but no acceleration. Just look at systems moving at constant speed past each other, right? He says the laws of physics are the same, and he didn't even invent that. He picked that up because Galileo, hundreds of years earlier, said if you're on a boat in the fog, how do you know you're moving? You could be at rest or you could be moving, real fast. Or if you're on a rocket ship in outer space, if you can't see any markers outside and you're moving at a constant speed, the rocket ship says, the speedometer says 100,000 miles a second, you don't know, right? Because there's nothing to compare it with. And anything you do on the rocket ship, throw up a ball, it'll come right back down to where it was. Any law of physics you want to test, you can't tell if you're moving. If you think about that, good example of that is you're in a car at a traffic light, and there's a car next to you, and you catch an eye with the guy in the car next to you. All of a sudden, the guy's moving up. You step on your brake because you think maybe you're going backwards.
Right.
You can't tell.
Right.
You don't know who's moving, right?
Yeah.
So, example of the motion being relative. So if motion is relative, anything that you do in your cubbyhole, your train, your box, your boat, whatever it is, anything you do will not tell you what your speed is relative to anything else.
Yeah.
Now you think about that and it makes sense.
Right.
The one about the light doesn't make as much sense at all. But to resolve these two, if he said these two things hold, then what he was forced to do was to say that our measurement of lengths and time intervals and heaviness of objects all must be relative to the system. The speed of light is not relative to the system.
Yeah,
the speed of light is the same to whoever. All right, that's weird. That is weird. Don't try to understand that because it's I think impossible to understand based on our knowledge of anything that we see.
But how did he understand it? And how did he decide that was true? Like, how did he get to that conclusion?
The first sentence in his, groundbreaking paper on special theory of relativity was. If you look at that experiment and the explanation for it, you'd have a coil at rest. Now we know at this point, right? At rest, what do you mean by at rest, right? And you take a magnet and the magnet is moving, right?
Yeah.
The explanation of why the electricity comes is different than if the magnet was still and the coil moved.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the older physics, was dealing with the systems, non-relativistic systems, where they assumed it was a rest. This goes back to Newton, where he believed there was such a thing as absolute rest. It was real to say what is really at rest.
Right.
And, but, Einstein was brought up in later words where we know the Earth moves. That was, new to Galileo, to Copernicus, and so forth. The Earth moves. Well, the sun is still. It moves around, but we know the sun isn't still either because that's revolving in the galaxy. So what is the galaxy doing relative to? So who's to say absolute rest? Well, Newton said it's the space itself that's at absolute rest.
Right.
But I said, how do you measure space? How do you?
Right.
There's no marker there. You know what I mean? So so it's just a rethinking from the roots. He said, let's just throw out all our preconceived notions, just look at this situation here. And he said, so the idea, there's another kind of aesthetic here, the idea that nature would care which one was moving is something we should get rid of. Those situations are indistinguishable. They're indistinguishable. We may say, oh, this one's really red.
Yeah.
Can't tell.
Yeah.
So he was trying to think of a way to be able to keep that that unity of thinking, right? And the only out for him, after assuming, for reasons I mentioned briefly, but that speed of light is the same for everybody, the only way for him to change that was to say, okay, then what's changing is what is actually relative, not the speed of light, but our time measurements, our length measurements, and our measurements of matter, how heavy something is.
Oh.
So mass, length, and time, which was assumed to be how long is a ruler? It's 12 inches. To who? To anybody, it's 12 inches. But if the ruler is moving and you measure it and account for everything, it's going to be smaller. Very, very minutely smaller until it approaches the speed of light. And as it's approaching the speed of light, we perceive it as shrunken because length is not an absolute. So it's not, you can't ask the question of what's the real length. The answer to that is like all good questions has no answer.
Right. You just said all good questions, it has no answer.
Yeah, I got that on the internet from you.
Oh, from me?
Yes. So anyway, so the outcome of this way of thinking about things is that if you assume that light, unlike any other object that we know, does not, the speeds are not relative for light. I mean, this is the thing. Like somebody's, I'm going back to this image all the time, but somebody's running inside of a train at 5 miles an hour, right? Relative to the train, right? He's capable of running 5 miles an hour inside a long train. Okay.
Yeah.
The train is moving at 20 miles an hour relative to the track.
Right.
Question: how fast is the guy moving?
And you have to say relative to something. You can't just say. You have to say relative to the train or relative to the ground.
Relative to the train, he's moving at 5. Relative to the ground, he's moving at 25, or maybe subtract it, 25.
Oh, okay.
I didn't 20 miles an hour.
Right, so he's running in the train. I see.
The train's moving at 20, the guy's moving at 5 inside the train. So he's either going 25 or 15, depending which way he's going, right?
Right.
Now, if you ask the question, how fast is he really going?
Yeah.
What's the answer?
What's the answer? There is no answer, right? But you could do it in relation to light, though, maybe. Because light is fixed.
No. I would leave it. There is no answer. There's no really. There's no correct answer.
Okay.
It depends on what you're talking about.
Okay. Oh yeah. Because you could say it. You could say in relation to light. So like the light that's coming off. Like if somebody is on the side of the train, they're shining a flashlight. Anyway, wait a second. I'm going to go to another question. So let's say that human beings didn't have eyes. And so our only sense, besides touch and smell and taste, was hearing. Okay, so light does not exist for us at all.
Okay.
Right? So then the speed of sound would have would that end up being the same, like have the same effect for us, like the speed of sound?
No.
Why not?
It's something. Well, I think we can explain to ourselves satisfactorily what sound is. It's a vibration, a physical vibration. The
Right.
string vibrates back and forth. It makes the air vibrate back and forth. That vibration, like a water wave, gets to the eardrum vibrates, right? Picks it up. Brain does something. But the idea of sound itself is a physical vibration of something, whether it's water or molecules or stuff like that. Now, light, we don't know what the fuck it is.
Okay, so that's why it's like so. But you're not gonna say that it's fixed. I mean, you say that it goes it's 186,000 miles per second in relation to everybody.
Relative to anybody.
Right, relative to anybody. So Einstein proved that nothing is fixed. Everything is in relation to something
except the
else.
speed of light.
Well, the speed of light is it's not that it's fixed. It's that it's always the same in relation to any object. So there's a subtle difference in a way, because it's moving at the speed in relation to everything. Okay, so now I'm just wondering, because I believe that truth is a relative thing too. Like there's like different things that aren't. There's no reference. It's only in relation to something else. And so, like with music, there are many ways that you could say that, But like in terms of so because there's all this people talking about truth, like it's a big buzzword these days, and like saying, like what is the truth of a particular situation? So, and I sometimes say with history, for instance, what actually happened. You could say that, let's say, well, you're just looking, let's not tie it to anything political. Let's try to make it as unpolitical as possible. So let's say historically, we say that I grew up in Skyview Acres, which is the same place that I grew up in. Well, no, that's too complicated. Because I'm imagining if we're sharing this video, so to have a context. I came to Prescott.
You grew up in New York State, say.
Okay, I grew up in New York State, right? And you could say that's true. That's a fact. That's like just it's just a truth. But what does that mean that I grew up there, for instance? Was I born? You could just keep zeroing in on the details, and to say that I was raised in New York State doesn't carry really any information. It's just it's just one little thing that doesn't really have that much meaning. So what you take from it, like the meaning that you take from it, is relative to what you're trying to say, or what what your belief system is, like the way you see the world, and there's so many different images that I have, like New York State, for instance. Like when I say I'm from New York, people often think of New York City, and it's then you could get into all the whole, the urban world, and it's a completely different thing than what I grew up with, and so it's I'm really just kind of, it could be that I'm just trying too hard to make some kind of connection here, But I think it's
No,
interesting.
I get from what you said. I think that's a really interesting thing. In other words, are there absolute things? You know,
Right.
if space, time, and matter are relative, and those are pretty nitty gritty important stuff.
Right,
The way
right,
we see the world.
right. See, there you go.
Uh,
There, right.
yeah. So, um, are there absolutes? Are there absolutes? I'll tell you what Einstein said about that because this could be helpful. Um, he believed, I think, that all our knowledge, our scientific knowledge of figuring out what the world is, is hopefully increasing. We're approaching it more, understanding what it is, and that there is an absolute. There is an absolute truth or an absolute reality or something like that. But I don't think we'll be able to get there. You know what I mean? I'm kind of paraphrasing him.
Right.
It's something that we aim for, but are we going to hit it? I don't think we're capable of that. But it's there. It's like
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is,
another
see,
thing he said. Another
okay,
quote, just quick.
okay.
I love this one. Very short. Facts are theory laden.
He said, you,
All our facts are weighed down the way we think about the world.
wait, what's that again? The last thing?
The way we think about the world, our theories, our
Yeah,
assumptions, are just like what you said about, you were raised in Skype, but to somebody else who doesn't know about that, what does it mean?
right. And
Yeah,
also,
you have to have something. You have to be able to speak English. Yeah, blah blah blah.
right, right.
So, and I love this thing because Trump would love it too. Unfortunately, but I mean that when what's her name, Conway, his spokesman, spokes-lady for a long time, she said we have alternative facts. Remember?
Yeah, right.
Use that phrase. Alternative facts. That's scary because we we I hate to be political about this kind of thing, but the progressive type thinking people really believe, I think, that there are a set of facts, that there are true facts. And to be able to say alternative facts or something like that really just blows us away. But, I mean, is that possible? Is it possible that there are alternative facts? Is it possible to see something in a different way and point to those as facts? I mean, that scares the hell out of me right now because of what's going on in the world.
Right.
I want to cling to that there really is something that we're right and they're wrong, but is that relative?
Well, okay, so this is a key point for me, and I think that um, this is what I want to talk about actually because and I love that you can connect this to the theory of relativity because I think it can be, but right now I want to say that facts are relative. So, and it's the intention. So the Trump administration had a particular intention for the manipulation of facts and
I
come
agree.
up so to come up with these alternative facts. It wasn't just that they saw things differently. It's that they wanted to
Correct.
manipulate people's perceptions.
It
And
wasn't honest. It wasn't.
right. It wasn't this is I see things this way and you see things that way.
Right.
It's that you see things this way, and if I say that things are another way, then it's going to change the way people are responding to what you believe. So
Yes.
and I think
It
that's
muddies the waters.
right, and that was the purpose. So but when you
Oh,
think
yeah.
about and I think that when I talk to somebody who has, what I see as alternative facts, let's say, for instance, I was in conversation with someone who didn't think that the COVID virus was a big deal, and I was talking to her, and it was a difficult, conversation, because to me it is a very big deal, and I'm very much in touch with the feelings I have about the suffering that it's causing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, but what I have to do is, in our conversation, I have to, I told her, like, there are other things we talked about too. Like, we talked about some race stuff, and she said some things about race that were painful for me to hear. I just said, this is painful for me to hear what you're saying, and I disagree with it. What I wanted was the conversation, and I felt like it's a matter of, like, what's important, and so when the facts, you can look at the facts and you can whittle them down to say, like, this is the fact. This is, like, okay, this person, like a police shooting, for instance. You could say this bullet was from the policeman's gun, right? And the person had their hands up, and then, but you could just, like, anybody could go into whatever details they want to try to put across their point of view. So that's the thing. It's like, how do we use the facts that we have available to us? And so I think that there's some kind of connection. I feel like there's some kind of connection, and with, like, this relativity thing. And because I don't understand relativity well enough, it's just a feeling. And so you were starting to say, like, because the essential.
I think I share the.
Wait, there's just one thing.
I share the feeling.
Yeah, you share the feeling. Okay, right. You said that that, like, because it deals with, like, the very rudiments of our whole reality, because it deals with with physical. You said light, and I forget what you said, but like, you go. Can you talk now about what you were going to say?
Yeah, well, space, matter, and time. You could argue that those are fundamental, building blocks of our reality sense. I mean, just as an example, all the measurements that we do, if you think about them, they're all based on mass, length, and time.
Right.
Like, velocity is miles per hour. Right. Weight,
right.
And stuff like that. Density, kilograms per cubic meter. You know what I mean? It's all dealing with, we see the world through those kind of things. You can't help it, I don't think, So, but I got to say this is kind of a disclaimer to where we're going with this. I agree with you, but I think Einstein would disagree. And here's what I think he would say is, all of this is like you're doing, speculation. You're bringing this into emotions and stuff like this. He said, what I said can be rigorously mathematically defined. It applies to space measurements, matter measurements, and time measurements, right? He would withdraw from trying to push this into religion or this like this. He wanted to pack, not that he didn't feel like you do, and I do, about the suffering and stuff like that, and stuff like that. He was aware of that and the beauty of the world and all that. But in the physics part, it was this is a way of dealing. We have a mathematical description of explaining facts, even though, he said that facts are influenced by theory, which I love that, Anyway, but when you or I are doing, I think is legitimate, is using this as philosophically, of saying, how can these ideas be applied to other areas?
Right.
Not rigorously, it wouldn't be physics, but it's just by, and artists did that all the time. Artists use that, rightly or wrongly, but they did. Like Durrell wrote a thing, the court, I forgot the name of the book. I have it here. But he did it three dimensions of space, one in time, as a as an order for these novels that he wrote. Faulkner supposedly used these things too. Picasso knew about relativity. The whole structure of the world in Paris and Berlin in the 20s and stuff like that. It was flooding all people in the arts and the intellectual world. So Cubism came out at the same time as relativity, as general relativity, which you're distorting things. The new descending staircase, that painting by Duchamp, where there's like kind of a blocky thing coming down the thing, extending out time. So the ideas of the variability of space, mass, and time influence thinking and creative people,
right.
from the beginning.
Right.
So he was wary of it being misused, because he was so often misquoted and, stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. So I at the risk of misusing it, and I think that I would like to pursue this because I feel like actually there's something about it that I think that really, is powerful because, so I just don't, I think that there's, I'm not really sure how to go about it, but.
I think you're on the right track. I like what you're saying. I never thought about thinking truth in that way, just to check, how about beauty?
Right. See, I think, and beauty and truth are so interrelated. To me, truth is beauty. Right? So
you know that John Keats, the poet, said that in a poem.
I think truth he might have. Did he read any of my stuff?
Truth. He must have.
He must have. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's, but truth is so, especially now in this post-truth time that we're living in. It's so
right.
So take beauty, because it's a similar thing. Is beauty an absolute?
Right, and we both know that that's impossible, right? And also like there's other things that we take for granted as absolute, and here's an example for me. This evil. Okay, let's look at evil. Okay, so my cat is the cutest little animal in the world. Like, she's just so cute. She's so cute. She's like, every time I look at her, I just smile.
Is she there?
No, she doesn't. She's at my house.
Okay.
So now, that would be good if I could show you.
Yes,
my
please show me the cuteness.
But I've seen her play with animals. I've seen her play with birds and mice, and
she's not cute.
To the mouse, she is not cute, and she could be considered evil. Like, here she is having fun, throwing this mouse away that's dying. Throwing it around, and so like evil. Do you think that it's possible that evil is also in the mind of in the eye of the beholder? Like, what is evil?
It's one of those good questions.
Right, and we think about when I think, like, because we have this tendency, I think, to apply the word to human beings, and I have trouble with that because, like, I really have this very deep belief that everybody is born completely beautiful, completely human, like nothing. They're not evil. I don't think that anyone's born evil, and so what causes people to do evil things? And so it's about relationships again. It's like people think of Hitler as like the ultimate, like he's like, you know, Einstein. When you say genius, you say Einstein. When you think evil, you think Hitler.
Right.
Right. But that's in our times. Like there are other times, you know, when there are other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And but he couldn't have done it without the aid of, you know, lots of people.
Right.
Worked with him. That he wasn't working alone. You know.
Right.
And so these relationships are, how did that come to be that he was able to do so much destruction? And you trace it back, you know, to things that were happening in Germany, like, you know, things that, you know. So, I mean, we could go on and on with that, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so, like, it's again this thing of, I think it's like, it's about, I feel like it's about relativity.
You know, if I could just, you know, zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, relativity is an idea that Einstein had about the universe, about the physical universe, that opens us up to different ways of thinking about things.
Yeah.
So I feel totally legitimate, in spite of Einstein's objections and stuff like that, to applying his breakthrough way of looking at things differently to the rest of the world. You know, not trying to put mathematics on truth and beauty, but I mean, just like you're thinking about it. You know, can we rethink this thing? Can we change?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and that's a really, I love. That's also a brilliant thing, because I think I get like into these modes where I want things to be so nice and clean and orderly, and so I want to be able to use his theory of relativity and think that it fits this concept perfectly. But I could also, instead of doing that, just say, well, it is inspired by that, and it's so, you know, and it's a version of relativity. It's like, you know, we're taking the idea that when I was, you know, inspired, like I think about relativity all my life since high school, when you were, you know, introducing me to these ideas. And ever since, I was like, how can, like, this seems to like relate to so many things. Yeah. And so now I just feel like, wow, so that's like a blessing. I can use that to help me think about this stuff, and like how, you know, we can communicate, learn. I think that we need to find new ways to communicate in this world. You know?
Can we just bring this back to music again? Because, you know the term zeitgeist, like the spirit of the times. There was a huge change in the 20th century. I mean, not that Einstein was working in a vacuum either, but when he came up with these ideas, he's basically, you know, in physics. I mean, his world was physics and mathematics at that time. But at very close to that, whether it was an influence of relativity directly or indirectly, people started to open up things. And so look at the music. Look at jazz, and Stravinsky, and you know, and some of those other kinds of 12-note scale and stuff like that. You know, I mean, people opened up, and just like the painters, they started painting completely differently. You know, they saw things differently, and I think the ability to be able to say is, wait a second, am I just doing the same old, you know, kind of thing? There's a tree, there's my tree, you know, kind of thing. Can I approach this differently? Can I just, you know?
Right. And it's really so true. Everybody was being influenced by everybody else, and that's just the nature of human beings. Like we that's our social. That's, I think, one thing that does separate us from a lot of other animals. It's like how much we're influenced.
Well, there was an article today in the Times Science section about culture in animals. They're saying there's a breakthrough here, that people are starting to, we're not the only ones that have culture. Animals have culture.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they gave this example of a chimpanzee with stuffing grass in its ear, you know, and they pushed it in there kind of thing, and like wore it, like kind of, look at me, you know. And so the other chimps started to do it too, and it wasn't easy because they had to put it in there, they couldn't hurt.
Really?
And then it spread around, and then this chimp died, and they were still doing it, putting grass in their ears, So,
That's hilarious. That one I love.
Yeah.
Because that's that's exactly, wow, that's beautiful. I've been actually reading a book called about whales and different it's talking about chimps too. I think I haven't gotten to that part. And these birds, their cultures, and the way some whales, like these humpback whales, have different. It's like folk songs. They have different for different regions, and they keep changing.
Yeah.
And like different areas, like they're all humpback whales, but they have different songs for different areas.
Different songs and different distinct fishing methods.
Right.
Can I run this by you? I just, animals have a sense of direction that I certainly don't have. You know what I mean? I mean, they know where they're going. God knows how they do it, but all animals do that. Birds and and butterflies, all that kind of stuff. And scientists are constantly trying to figure out what mechanisms they use. And they're always looking for mechanisms. And I have this feeling. I can share it with you, not many other people, but it's like everything is so entwined. You know what I mean? Spatially, temporally, everything like this. So we learn in our everyday lives I go down 3 blocks and I make a right and I look at my watch, and stuff like this. And it's like we're so trained in that kind of thing. Maybe the animals bypass this whole thing and just interconnect. I want to be there. I'm here. There is no time, space, or anything like that. Just get there. I don't know how, if I could describe this, it would be pretty brilliant. Right. I don't know how to, but I just think is that they sense this interconnectivity, and they're not bothered by distances and hours apart and stuff like that. They can just connect. And I don't know. I tried this out on some people. They looked at me funny. You know what I mean? so.
Well, I think like. I feel like you're kind of saying that like we're so stuck on our particular systems of navigation.
Yes.
And not just navigation geographically, but navigating through everything. It's like we use these pointers and we have the, and like it's possible like a lot of these brilliance like philosophers and stuff. And I think of Einstein as a philosopher.
He definitely was.
Yeah.
Whether he wanted to be or not.
What?
Whether he wanted to be or not.
Right. And it's just like he was kind of like bringing us back to what maybe people knew thousands of years ago. Like they weren't so connected to this fixed thing of like, this is the fixed reality. And then everything... Right. Like maybe it's just a blip, and it's. I just feel like when I talk, I find words constantly that I have to kind of re-examine their use and like what do they really mean? Like what do we really mean when we use this word, or like where what is the meaning? And it's the relativity, because it's the meaning is in relation to something else that we were talking about. It's not like, I don't think these words don't have fixed meanings.
Hey, Noam Chomsky?
Yeah.
He was a linguist.
Right.
The greatest of linguists. I mean, they don't give prizes for that. I saw a videotape that he made some years ago, and he says, "What's a word?" And he lets you think about it, or he was talking to some people, and they said, later, just think about what you're saying. You know what I mean? What the hell is a word? How do you define that? And you see how subtle it is, just as you were starting to say. It's like, right, you were just getting into that when I kind of cut you off, but about what is it? What are we talking about here? Oh, the word. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even the word, right? Is that what you're saying?
The word itself, and it's like it's ambiguous. It's the ambiguity is built into the word itself.
Right. And so now we're kind of getting back to music again because I think that it's about communication. Like, what is the purpose of communication? Like, words are used for different purposes. Sometimes it's like to tell somebody how to change the tire. Okay, let's say you have to tell somebody how to change the tire. It's really good for that.
Right.
And you don't want to get too poetic with
right,
with
or a
the words.
legal document or a business thing. So,
Yeah.
Precise meaning is what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and legality, then that gets problematic too because
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. So, but like, and so in poetry and music, I mean, I think like with songwriting, because that's my love, and when I try to actually say something in particular, I get all tangled up, and it doesn't come out as good, like if I try to like say so and then be specific about what I'm trying to convey in a song, it just doesn't work that well, It's
as it probably shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like if you really want to tell somebody something, just tell them. If I want to, I don't know. It's yeah. But the music as is as a language, that's another thing that people say that music is a language, and I kind of think of language as generally more like it's like a code. Like you have to learn the code. Like English, is a language, and if you don't know the code, you can't speak it and you can't understand it. And whereas music, you don't need the code. You just listen or you play. But if you want to play a particular genre, you have to know the code for that genre. Like if you want to play jazz, you have to really study the language of jazz, which is different than the language of classical.
Yeah.
And so yeah. And now I'm going off on tangents, but it's all relative.
That the catchphrase "it's all relative," is, and that's what you started out this whole thing by saying things are just not fixed. You use the word fixed, I think, is the absolute, I mean, if I'm translating it right, here we go with the word problem, right? I would say absolute. That's what Einstein used. There's the absolute and there's relative. So time went from being absolute to relative.
I feel like the thing that I feel is hanging for me is the thing about the speed of light, and that's the part that I could probably just keep going around in circles trying to figure out this whole thing. And
I can't get it. It's like it's I have the same feeling about the speed of light as I did about this feeling of direction of animals and birds connecting, just skipping all the markers, but just connecting the dots because they're connected anyway. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah, so I don't get the speed of light being like it is either. It doesn't compute because it's not like anything. So I have it as that for me, light itself is a great mystery. And you mentioned this earlier, as the ancients knew, as people, we just started to pin it down. We try to pin it down, and you can't pin it down.
Right, and so maybe that's the final. That's we could just end on that, like that some things you just can't pin them down. Light is that
one of them.
Yeah.
Einstein, here, let me end with this. Einstein said in his later life, he said, for 40 years, I've studied light. He says, today, every Tom, Dick, and Harry thinks he knows what light is. They don't. Something like that,
Right. Okay, so, and then there's Picasso, who said, I have studied light I think for probably 40 years, and perspective, and all the different elements of painting, that. And he said, but I still can't figure out how to paint like a child.
Ah.
So maybe
That's
that's a good ending right there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Wally. Love ya. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Here's a little known fact, actually, that it's very likely that I was conceived at the very moment that Einstein died. So, I'm just saying. Everybody music, it's an ancient genre and the latest craze. Everybody music, it's a human revolution, not a passing phase. 'Cause everybody is a musical body designed from the ground up to connect. And everyone can be a music gardener. All you got to do is sow seeds of music wherever you go.
Don't forget to word them, Mo.
Everybody music, it's us.